They lied to me about who my real father was for 18 years. My name is Ava, I'm 18, and on paper my life looks boringly normal. I'm finishing high school, stressing about finals and college applications, arguing with my friends about which campus has the best food. If you met me, you'd probably say I'm the rational one in the group, the one who doesn't cry easily, who talks other people down from panic attacks, who always has a backup plan. I've always prided myself on being logical and calm, the person who can step outside the drama and see things clearly. At home, it was mostly just me and my mom, Marion. She's warm in that chaotic, over-caffeinated way, always starting projects and never quite finishing them, always humming to some old song from the 90s. We'd cook together, gossip about school, watch crime documentaries, and pause every 5 minutes to argue over who we thought did it. She called me her little lawyer because I always needed evidence for everything. My dad, Tom, was different, quiet, distant, not in a screaming, throwing things way, more like a permanent background character in his own house. He worked a lot, came home tired, ate dinner, watched TV, and went to bed. We didn't fight, but we didn't talk much either. I just assumed that was his personality. Some dads are goofy and hands-on, some are just there like furniture. I told myself it was fine. Still, there was always this weird, low-level feeling of not quite belonging, like I'd somehow wandered onto the wrong movie set. I'm taller than both my parents, with darker hair and sharper features, a strong jaw, prominent cheekbones. My eyes are this deep brown that looks almost black in certain lighting. Standing between them in family photos, I always looked like I'd been photoshopped in. People joked about it all the time. At barbecues or family gatherings, someone would eventually say, "Wow, Ava, you sure don't look like either of them. Must have taken after the mailman, huh?" Everyone would laugh. My mom's laugh was always just a little too high, a little too forced. She'd swat the air and say, "Oh, stop," but her eyes would flick away for a second. I rolled my eyes and brushed it off. It was just a dumb joke, right? I never imagined that stupid line about the mailman was actually a warning sign, a tiny crack in the glass, just waiting for the right pressure to shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said my childhood was pretty decent. Not perfect, not some Pinterest board fantasy, but stable. We had a small house, bills paid on time, dinner at 6 almost every night. Tom worked long hours at this logistics company, always on a deadline, always checking his email. Mom ran the house, groceries, school stuff, dentist appointments, the million invisible things that keep everything from falling apart. From the outside, we were fine. On the inside, there were these little hairline fractures I never fully looked at. Tense silences at dinner when Mom asked about his day, and he answered with one word. The way his jaw clenched if she mentioned money. The way he'd sometimes stare at me when he thought I wasn't looking, with this strange, unreadable expression that wasn't quite warmth but wasn't outright dislike either. As I got older, I started noticing other things. Whispers behind closed doors. Voices raised, then dropped when I walked past the hallway. My name said too sharply, then followed by a sudden hush. Once when I was around 13, I came into the kitchen and Mom was on the phone with my aunt. She was saying, "We agreed no one brings it up around Ava, okay?" Then she saw me and almost dropped the phone. "Gotta go, love you." Click. Whenever conversations drifted toward family history, everything got weirdly stiff. In health class, when we had to make a family tree, I came home excited, asking about my grandparents on Dad's side, where they were from, what they were like. Tom stared at his plate and said, "They're gone," like that was the end of the story. "What were their names?" I asked. He shrugged. "It doesn't matter. The past is the past." Mom would jump in with some vague comment about small-town folks, and nothing interesting there. It always felt rehearsed, like they'd practiced these lines in front of a mirror. There was this unspoken rule in our house: don't dig into the past. No old albums from Dad's side, no stories about his childhood, no random relatives popping in. Mom had some photos from when she was younger, her with big hair and eyeliner, laughing with friends, but there were gaps. Pictures where someone's arm was around her shoulder, body cropped out, face conveniently missing. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Not everyone is close to their extended family. Not everyone has some epic origin story. And honestly, I loved my mom, and I tolerated my dad. It felt disloyal to poke at the fragile peace we had. So I internalized the rule. I stopped asking where Tom grew up or why we never visited any grandparents. I didn't question why certain relatives exchanged these weird, loaded glances when I walked into the room. I just focused on school, friends, and being the good daughter who didn't cause trouble. I convinced myself that loving your family meant not asking painful questions. That if something was buried, it was for a reason. That some truths were better left alone. I had no idea how wrong I was, or how hard that lie would come back to hit me. It all started with this stupid, harmless sounding assignment in biology class. Senior year, last semester, when everyone's mentally checked out and teachers are just trying to keep us from setting the school on fire. Our teacher, Mrs. Patel, gave us a genetics project. Map out your family's traits and blood types, see how they line up with basic inheritance patterns. Easy, right? I've always liked science. I went home, dropped my bag, and asked Mom, "Hey, do you know you and Dad's blood types?" She was chopping onions at the counter. "Mine's a positive," she said without looking up. "Your dad's B positive, I think. Why?" "Project," I said, scribbling it down. "Pretty sure mine's O. They tested me when I had that surgery in middle school." She froze, knife mid-air, just for a second. Then she forced a smile. "Must have remembered it wrong. Maybe I'm O. I'll check my old papers later." It was small, that pause, but it tugged at something in me. The next day at school, I plugged in the types on the little Punnett square chart Mrs. Patel gave us. Mom A+, Dad B+, Kid O. I stared at the square. Technically not impossible, but when I asked Mrs. Patel after class, just out of curiosity, she tilted her head. Are you absolutely sure about the blood types?" "Pretty sure," I said. She shrugged. "It's not impossible, but it would be rare. Sometimes parents misremember. Don't stress about it." I tried not to. Honestly, I did. But that night at dinner, I brought it up in this casual, joking way. "Hey, Mom, did you ever find your blood type?" My teacher said something about it being weird. She went pale, like all the color drained out of her face at once. Before she could speak, Tom put his fork down. "Some things don't matter, Ava," he said, voice flat. "Don't overthink it. Finish your dinner." No joke, no curiosity, just this hard wall slamming down in front of me. That was the first time I felt real suspicion. Like, okay, what the hell is going on? Later, I told my best friend Lola about it while we were scrolling through TikTok on her bed. She laughed and said, "Watch you be adopted or something. Plot twist. You're secretly royalty." We joked about it for a while, making up wild theories. But that night, lying in bed, the joke wouldn't shut up in my head. Adopted. Switched at birth. Mailman. All those things people had said over the years suddenly didn't feel funny anymore. I started looking at our family photos differently. In some of them, Mom's arm is wrapped around me tight, this fierce kind of love in her eyes. In others, Tom is standing a little apart, hands in his pockets. Sometimes he's looking at me with this distance, like he's posing with someone else's kid. Once you see cracks, you can't unsee them. Every time I said Dad, after that, I felt this tiny hesitation inside, like my mouth was saying one thing and my brain was quietly whispering, "Are you sure?" Sleep stopped coming easily. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying weird moments from childhood that suddenly felt loaded. The jokes about the mailman, the cropped photos, the way Mom always shut down any conversation about before. That stupid biology project didn't just give me homework. It gave me the first real reason to wonder if my whole life had been built on a lie. Once the seed was planted, it didn't go away. It grew. It wrapped itself around everything. I'd be brushing my teeth and catch my reflection and think, whose face is this actually? I'd look at Tom across the dinner table and feel like I was sitting with a stranger I'd been calling Dad my whole life. Lola was the one who brought up the DNA test. We were in her room again, laptops open, pretending to study. I told her about the weird blood type thing, the way my parents reacted. She raised an eyebrow. "You know you can literally buy a DNA kit online, right? It's not like the Dark Ages." I laughed it off at first. That's so dramatic. But later that night, alone in my room, I opened my browser and typed DNA test into the search bar. Within minutes, I was on one of those ancestry sites, looking at a colorful ad promising to unlock your true heritage. It felt cheesy and over the top, but my heart was pounding anyway. I told myself it was for fun, for curiosity, for the project. I entered my info, put in my debit card number, flinched at the total, and hit confirm. When the kit arrived, I hid it under my bed like it was drugs or something. I swabbed my cheek in the bathroom with the door locked, hands shaking, almost laughing at how ridiculous I felt. Then I mailed it back and tried to forget about it. Except I didn't forget. I checked the tracking number like it was a college acceptance letter. Every status update made my stomach flip. Sample received. Sample processing. Results pending. Then one afternoon, sitting on the couch with some mindless show playing, my phone buzzed. "Your DNA results are ready." I swear my whole body went cold. I opened the app, thumb hovering, heart racing. A colorful pie chart popped up first, percentages and regions and stuff I barely registered. My eyes went straight to the section labeled Family Matches. There was no father-daughter match with Tom's name. Nothing. Zero shared DNA. According to this little app, genetically, he was a complete stranger. Instead, right under Close Family, there was a name I'd never seen on a family tree, but that felt weirdly familiar. Ethan Chambers. Predicted relationship, parent-child. For a second, I thought it was a glitch. I backed out, reopened it, read it again. Ethan Chambers. The name tugged at something in the back of my mind. I went digging. I pulled out Mom's old photo box from the hall closet, a dusty shoebox she hadn't touched in years. Flipping through the pictures, I found him. You know that feeling when you look at someone and it's like staring into a warped mirror? Same dark hair, same jawline, same intense eyes, same awkward smile. A younger version of him, arm around my mom's shoulder, both of them laughing at something off camera. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, me and Ethan, summer 3. My breath stuttered. A quick search on social media and Google later, and there he was in real time. Ethan Chambers, local businessman, small company, photos at charity events, smiling with his wife and his daughter, Sophie. She looked about my age, confident, sun-kissed, standing between her parents like she belonged there without question. While I was living a lie, someone out there had been living the life that matched my face. Shock turned into this hot, bitter mix of anger and grief. It wasn't just that my family had lied. It was that my truth had always existed, walking around this same town, and nobody thought I deserved to know it. I lasted 2 days before I exploded. 2 whole days of walking around the house like a ghost, my phone burning in my pocket, that DNA result burned into my brain. Every time I looked at Mom, I saw that photo of her and Ethan, laughing like they had no idea they were planting a landmine 18 years into the future. It was a Thursday night. The house was quiet. Tom was in the living room watching the news. Mom was in the kitchen, wiping down already clean counters the way she does when she's anxious. My heart was beating so hard it hurt. I walked in, opened my phone, and set it on the table between us with the DNA report pulled up. Ava, she asked, frowning, "What's this?" "I took a DNA test," I said. My voice sounded weirdly calm, like it was coming from somewhere outside me. "It says Tom isn't my dad." Her face crumpled before she even finished reading. Her hands started shaking. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh, Ava. So it's true." My throat felt tight like I was swallowing glass. "You lied to me my whole life." She sank into a chair, grabbing the edge of the table like she needed it to stay upright. Tears were already spilling down her cheeks. "I was going to tell you," she said. "Someday, I just kept putting it off." "Someday," I snapped. "I'm 18. When exactly were you planning to mention that the man I call Dad is not actually my dad?" She inhaled sharply, trying to steady herself. "His name is Ethan," she said quietly. "We were together before I met Tom. He was my first love. I got pregnant at 19. When I told him, he panicked. We fought. Then he left." The room blurred for a second. "He left you while you were pregnant with me." She nodded, wiping her face. "I went home to my parents. They were conservative, very religious. They told me I had ruined my life, that no man would want me. They arranged for me to meet Tom. He knew I was pregnant. They made it sound like a solution. He agreed to raise you as his own on one condition, that we never contact Ethan again, that no one ever questioned who your father was." Her words sank in slowly, heavy and suffocating. "So everyone knew except me. We wanted to protect you," she insisted, voice cracking. "From judgment, from being the girl without a father, from the shame. We wanted you to have a normal family." I laughed, this harsh, broken sound. "Protect me? You didn't protect me, Mom. You trapped me in a story that wasn't even mine. You let me call a stranger Dad and never thought I deserved the truth." She covered her face with her hands. "I'm so sorry, Ava. I thought if we just pretended long enough it would become real. That love would be enough." The sound of footsteps made me turn. Tom stood in the doorway, eyes dark, jaw clenched. I hadn't even heard the TV shut off. "How long have you been listening?" I asked. "Long enough," he said quietly. We stared at each other, this awful, thick silence stretching between us. All the years of small talk and half smiles and pretending suddenly felt like they were crashing down around us. "Is it true?" I asked. "You're not my father." He didn't look away. "Not by blood," he said. "No." Something in me shattered at hearing him say it out loud. "Did you ever actually want me?" I asked, the words ripping their way out. "Or was I just part of some deal?" His eyes flashed with something, anger, hurt. "I don't know. Your mother was pregnant when I met her. I knew exactly what I was signing up for. I told myself I was doing the right thing. I thought maybe we could have a real family. But every time I looked at you, I saw him. The man she loved first. The man she would have chosen if he'd stayed. So you resented me," I said. He hesitated, and that was my answer. "I stayed," he said stiffly, "because I made a commitment, because appearances matter, because you deserved a stable home even if I reminded you that I wasn't really yours." I finished for him. Mom was sobbing openly now. "Tom, stop, please. No, I said, backing away from both of them. Let him talk. It's the first honest thing I've heard in this house. He looked like he wanted to say more, but the words died on his tongue. The three of us stood there in this horrible, frozen triangle. The woman who lied to protect me, the man who raised me out of obligation and resentment, and me, the walking reminder of a past they never dealt with. I suddenly couldn't breathe. I grabbed my keys, shoved my phone in my pocket. Ava, wait, Mom cried, reaching for me. Don't, I said, stepping back. I don't even know who I am right now. I can't be in this house. Then I walked out into the night, the front door closing behind me like a chapter slamming shut, leaving everything I thought I knew on the other side. I spent the next few days at Lola's place, curled up on her guest bed while her mom brought me tea and pretended not to notice when I randomly started crying. My phone lit up constantly with calls and texts from Mom and a few half-hearted messages from Tom, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Instead, I kept opening Ethan's profile over and over. His face felt like some kind of accusation and some kind of answer at the same time. I knew it was insane, but the thought kept beating in my head. He's out there. He exists. And he has no idea I do. On the third night, sometime after midnight, I finally snapped. I opened the Ancestry app, clicked on his name under Close Family, and hit the little message button. Hi, I typed. This is going to sound crazy, but I think I'm your daughter. I almost threw up when I hit send. He replied the next afternoon, a simple, "Can we talk?" followed by a phone number. My hands were trembling as I called. Hello. His voice was deeper, older than the videos I'd seen online, but it sent this weird jolt through me. Hi, it's Ava, I said, from the app. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing. I took a DNA test, I blurted. It says you're my biological father. My mom is Marion. He exhaled this shaky, disbelieving sound. Marion, he repeated quietly. Oh my God. We agreed to meet at this little cafe downtown, somewhere neutral. I got there 20 minutes early and sat by the window, tapping my foot, watching every car that pulled in. When he finally walked in, I knew it was him immediately. No question. Seeing him in real life was surreal, like watching my own features rearranged on an older face. He looked nervous, scanning the room until his eyes landed on me. Ava, he asked. I nodded. Yeah. We just stared at each other for a second, both of us clearly thinking the same thing. How is this real? I had no idea, he said as soon as we sat down. Your mom, she never told me she had you, I swear. I watched his face carefully, looking for lies the way I always do. He just looked devastated. She said you left, I said quietly. He winced. We fought. I was young, stupid, terrified of being a dad. I said some awful things, but I always assumed if she'd had the baby, I would have known. I would have come back. He swallowed hard. I am so sorry, Ava. Hearing that sorry from him felt like ripping open a new wound I didn't even know I had. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He pulled out his phone and after hesitating, showed me a photo. A girl about my age, laughing at the beach, hair whipping in the wind. This is Sophie, he said. My daughter, my half-sister. She looked like me and not like me at the same time. Same eyes, different smile. She looked happy, relaxed, like someone who'd always known exactly where she belonged. She doesn't know about you, he added quickly. No one does. I need time to figure out how to handle this. I have a family now, a wife, a life. There it was, the gentle rejection wrapped in adult language. I get it, I said, even though it stung. You don't want to blow up your world. He shook his head. It's not that I don't want you in my life. I have to be careful. I don't want to hurt Sophie or my wife. I need to talk to them. I need to process. I nodded, but inside, this hollow ache opened up. My truth was finally out, but it didn't come with instant belonging or some magical, real family moment. It came with limits and conditions and timelines. Finding him hadn't fixed anything. It had just shown me there was a whole other version of my life that never happened, and I was standing on the outside of it, looking in. Going back home after meeting Ethan felt like walking into a museum of a life I didn't recognize. Everything was exactly where I'd left it. The crooked family photos in the hallway, the dent in the couch cushion from where I always sat, the stupid fridge magnets from random gas stations. But it all felt off, like I'd stumbled onto a set after the actors had left. Tom wasn't in the living room anymore. His stuff had migrated to the guest room, razor, shirts, his laptop. Mom's room door stayed half closed most of the time. They debuilt this weird Cold War wall inside the house, and I was stuck in the middle. Mom tried to go into overcompensation mode. She made my favorite meals, lasagna, chicken curry, brownies that made the whole house smell like chocolate. She'd hover at my door with a plate, eyes red, voice too bright. I made extra, sweetheart. Thought you might want some. Sometimes I took it. Sometimes I didn't. Food couldn't fix the fact that every word out of her mouth for 18 years had been edited around a missing truth. Meanwhile, Tom practically became a ghost. He'd leave early for work, come home late, barely say more than hey if our paths crossed. When we were in the same room, the silence felt like wet cement, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream at him one second and apologize the next, even though I wasn't sure what I'd be apologizing for. Existing. To make things worse, secrets don't stay secret in small towns. My aunt, same one from the weird phone call years ago, somehow got the full story from my mom during a tearful breakdown. Within a week, people just happened to know. It started with looks, lingering stares at the grocery store, a cashier saying, "How are you holding up, hun?" in this knowing tone that made my stomach drop. Then came the whispers. I caught pieces of it at school. "You know Ava? Yeah, her dad's not her real dad. Her mom lied for like 18 years. She's the mistake baby." I pretended not to hear, plastering on this brittle smile and making jokes with Lola like everything was fine. But every whisper felt like someone was shoving a needle into my skin. Online wasn't better. One day, Ethan's company sponsored some charity event and his name popped up in the local news feed. I made the mistake of reading the comments. Such a great family man. Love seeing successful locals give back. Then, buried a little lower, from some anonymous account. "Funny what you don't see behind closed doors. Heard he's got another kid out there." My heart lurched. I refreshed. More comments. People speculating. People tagging others. No one saying my name, but I felt it in every word. I couldn't stop doom scrolling, even though it made me feel sick. It was like watching an accident in slow motion. My private nightmare leaking into the public eye. Everyone forming opinions about a story they only knew in pieces. At school, I laughed at the right times, turned in my homework, talked about prom dresses. Inside, I felt like I was hollowing out. I'd gone from being the calm, logical girl who helped other people through their crisis to being the one barely holding it together under a mask. I didn't want attention. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted silence. Space. A place where my existence wasn't up for debate. But it felt like everywhere I turned, someone had something to say about a life they hadn't actually lived. Graduation week is supposed to be this shiny, Instagram-ready stretch of time where everything feels hopeful and bittersweet. For me, it felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. There were the ceremonies, the award nights, the senior prank planning. On the surface, I did it all, smiling in group photos, hugging teachers, pretending the future felt exciting instead of terrifying. At home, the tension had thickened into something almost tangible. You could feel it the second you walked through the door. It all snapped 3 days before graduation. I came home from a senior picnic, sunburned and exhausted, and found Tom in the kitchen, rifling through a stack of mail. He barely glanced up when I walked in. "Hey," I said, heading for the fridge. He muttered something that might have been "hey" back. I don't even remember what triggered it. Maybe it was the way he sighed. Maybe it was the college brochure on the counter, my name printed neatly on the front. Maybe it was just everything. I said, half joking, "I'll be out of your hair soon." He slammed the mail down. "Don't do that," he snapped. I froze. "Do what?" "Act like you're the victim of all this," he said, finally looking at me. His eyes were bloodshot, angry. "You blew up this family, Ava." The words hit me like a slap. "I blew it up. I took a DNA test, that's it. You're the ones who lied. If you hadn't gone digging, none of this would have happened," he shot back. "Your mother and I, we had a system. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. You forced everything out into the open." My throat tightened. "I forced it. You were the one who agreed to live a lie. You could have told me the truth years ago." His face twisted. "Do you have any idea how hard it was for me? Raising another man's child, watching you grow up with his face. Every time I looked at you, I was reminded that I wasn't enough, that she chose him first." Tears burned behind my eyes. "I didn't choose any of that," I said, voice shaking. "I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask you to stay. You chose to, and then you punished me for it." He slammed his hand on the counter. "Your existence ruined my marriage," he yelled. "Do you get that? We were never really happy because of this secret hanging over us. Because of you." The words sliced right through me. For a second, I literally couldn't breathe. Then something inside me snapped back into place, hard and clear. "No," I said quietly, wiping my cheeks. "You don't get to put that on me. You could have left. You could have told the truth. You could have gone to therapy, done literally anything other than sit in your bitterness for 18 years and then dump it on a teenager." He stared at me, stunned. "You lost the right to judge me the day you decided to pretend and then blame me for the pretending," I said. "I might be the reminder, but I'm not the reason." For the first time, I watched his anger crack. Behind it, there was something raw and ugly, shame. He opened his mouth like he wanted to take it back, but nothing came out. I didn't wait. That night I went to my room, grabbed a duffel bag and started throwing clothes into it. a few books, my laptop, toothbrush. Mom appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "Ava, what are you doing?" "I'm leaving," I said. My voice shook, but my hands didn't. "Just for a while, I can't stay here." She started to cry, reaching for me. "Please, we can fix this, we can." "I need to breathe," I said. "I can't heal in a house that keeps reopening the wound." I texted Lola. 10 minutes later, her mom's car was in our driveway. I carried my bag out, feeling every year of my life in that hallway pressing down on me. Tom stood in the living room, silent. Mom sobbed softly behind me. I didn't slam the door when I left. I just closed it gently, walked down the steps, and got into a car headed toward a different version of my life. The freedom felt sharp and strange, like stepping out of a cast and trying to walk again. It hurt, but it was mine. For the first time, I wasn't just a character in someone else's story. I was walking out of the script entirely. Moving in with Lola's family felt like stepping into an alternate universe where parents actually talked about stuff instead of burying it. Her mom asked if I wanted to see a therapist before I even unpacked. Not in a judgmental way, more like, "You've been through hell. Do you want help surviving it?" I said yes. Therapy was weird at first. Sitting across from a stranger and trying to untangle 18 years of silent confusion and fresh betrayal felt impossible. But my therapist, Dr. K, had this calm, steady presence that made it easier to peel back the layers. We talked about identity, about how I'd always defined myself as the responsible one, the logical daughter, the buffer in the house. About how finding out the truth made all those roles feel fake. "Who are you if you're not their secret keeper?" she asked one day. I sat there, picking at a loose thread on the couch. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I want to find out." We talked about genetics and choice, how DNA is a blueprint, but not a destiny, how names and bloodlines are only part of the story. The rest is the person you decide to be. Slowly, I started to believe that. I reached out to Ethan again, but this time with different expectations. Not as a lost daughter begging to be claimed, but as a person who deserved answers. We met a few more times, this careful, awkward dance of getting to know each other. He told his wife about me, then Sophie. There were tears, anger, confusion, but eventually, a cautious acceptance. I met them once, briefly, in a park. Sophie and I talked about music and school and pretended not to notice how weird it all was. There was no magical instant sister bond, but there was possibility. At the same time, I started getting letters from my mom. Actual handwritten letters, not texts. Pages of apologies, explanations, memories of me as a baby. She didn't make excuses. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just owned it. "I thought keeping the secret was protecting you," she wrote in one. "Now I see it was protecting me. I'm sorry I made you carry the cost of my fear." Tom didn't call, but one day he sent a short message. "I did love you. I just didn't know how to do it right. I'm sorry." It wasn't enough to fix anything, but it loosened something in my chest. I didn't forgive them overnight. I still haven't fully, but the rage stopped burning constantly. It flickered, softer, leaving room for something like closure. One afternoon, sitting in Dr. K's office, I told her I wanted to change my name. Not all of it. Just my middle name, the one my grandparents had chosen for me before I was even born. It felt tied to a story I no longer wanted to live inside. "What do you want instead?" she asked. "Hope," I said, surprising myself with how certain it felt. "I want my name to remind me that I get to start over, that I'm not just made of other people's choices." So I filed the paperwork, filled out forms, signed my new name for the first time, Ava Hope. It felt symbolic, yeah, but also real. A tiny legal proof that I was allowed to redefine myself. Not Tom's mistake, not Marion's secret, not Ethan's surprise, just me. A year later, I'm sitting on the narrow bed in my college dorm, earbuds in, laptop open, trying to put all of this into words that might mean something to someone else. The walls are covered in photos, me and Lola at orientation, my new friends huddled in hoodies, sunsets over the campus lake. There's one old family photo tucked into the corner of my mirror. I keep it there on purpose. From the outside, I probably look like any other freshman, over-caffeinated, slightly overwhelmed, juggling classes, and part-time work. What most people don't see is the invisible fault line running through my life, the before and after of that DNA notification. I volunteer now at this nonprofit in town that supports adopted, donor-conceived, and NPE kids non-paternal events, which is the clinical way of saying your dad isn't your dad. The first time I walked into one of their teen support groups, I wanted to vomit. All these faces, all these stories that sounded different but felt the same at the core. They lied. No one told me. I don't know who I am anymore. I started out just listening, passing tissues, making tea. Then one night, a girl about 16 looked up at me with these shattered eyes and said, "How do you ever trust anyone again?" And the words just came out. They lied to me for 18 years, I said. But I'm done living their story. I can't control what they did. I can only control what I do now. The room went quiet. People actually listened. Not because I had all the answers, but because I was there, alive, proof that you can have your entire identity cracked open and still keep going. I used to think healing meant everything going back to how it was. Now I know that's impossible. My relationship with my mom is complicated but improving. We talk on the phone sometimes. I visited home for a weekend, stayed in the guest room, and we cooked together like we used to, only this time there were no missing pieces in the conversation. She says my new middle name suits me. Tom and I are still distant. We exchange polite messages on holidays. He sent me a photo when I got into college of the fridge with my acceptance letter magneted to it. Proud of you, he wrote. 3 words that used to mean nothing, but now feel like small, careful steps across a broken bridge. Ethan and his family are there. Not a replacement, not a fairy tale, just real people I'm slowly getting to know. Sometimes I look at Sophie and think about all the things we missed. Shared birthdays, inside jokes, fighting over the bathroom. Then I remind myself we have time now if we both choose it. The other day, I sat alone in my dorm with that old family photo. The one where I look slightly out of place between Mom and Tom, smiling like I didn't know I was standing in a lie. On impulse, I tore it down the middle. Not out of rage, but as this weird little ritual. Then I taped the halves back together, the tear line crooked but holding. Imperfect, but still a picture. That's what my life feels like now. Torn, taped, visible scars. But whole in a way honesty can make something whole, even when it hurts. If you've ever felt deceived by the people who were supposed to protect you, I won't tell you it's easy. It's not. Losing the story you grew up with feels like losing yourself. But there's this moment, after the shock and anger and grief, where you get to ask, okay, if none of that was fully real, then who do I want to be now? For me, the answer is simple and impossibly hard at the same time. Myself. Not their secret, not their shame, not their mistake, just of a hope. And this time, the story I'm living is actually mine.